Welcome, everyone. I am Chris Gore. This is Versus on a Monday. Today on the show, we're going to talk Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a hit or a miss. Find out from our esteemed panel, a veritable Justice League for Jedi Council of YouTubers. So let's get things started. Let's kick things off. Put your comments, questions, concerns, chat things. We're going to talk about all of it. So let's go, folks. Time for Versus. Come on! Here we are, folks. How's it going?
Fine.
You know me, I'm Chris Gore from Film Threat. Let's find out everybody else here. Oh, wait a second. Wait. We have a very special message from the former governor of the state of California.
Hello, everyone. This is AI Arnold. We would like you to hit the like button and please subscribe. We need to get the boys to 169,000. Isn't that right, Alan?
69.
I tell you, I could have just done that live.
Yeah, I
don't know why.
Put your shirt on, Alan. Put your shirt on. It's time for the show. All right, let's introduce everybody. Introduce yourselves as you come up full screen.
Alan Ing, is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire beautiful, or is just for boys and ghouls?
Yo, what's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. Looking forward to talking about this one. This one should be fun.
I'm here to the script doctor. I'm here to talk, but I'm also going to get ready for the ghosts itself with the appropriate attire required.
Perfect. Love it.
Én vagyok Paul Chato, én akarok beszélni Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
What's happening, y'all? Dante from Verbal Riot Show, ready to talk about this movie, man.
All right, let's get going. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire came out this weekend and did okay. Alan, what's the box office?
Last time I checked, now that you asked me, last time I checked it was 40 million, but we are at 45 million.
45 million. Is that a disappointment for a movie that cost $100 million? And I have to give them credit. It's not like this is a bloated Disney budget. 100 million seems like about what a blockbuster should cost, or a movie that you would hope would be a blockbuster. Is 40 million a disappointment? And check those numbers, Alan.
And I'll say it's 61 million worldwide, 40 million, 45 million domestic.
Gotcha. Okay, quick thoughts on the box office here.
I think it's kind of tame. It's decent. It's a decent box office. In my opinion, it probably needed to do somewhere in the neighborhood of, maybe 50 to 55 million to be considered successful. I always look at it. You want to get half of that budget back in its opening weekend, and that should lead to possibly a nice run, and I'm talking just domestically. 45 million is kind of underwhelming, but it's not terrible. It's not like 30 million or something like that. So I think it's okay. It's really going to depend on the word of mouth to see if this thing legs it out and makes its money back. Right now, not looking so good though.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, I think it's just really telling, man. There is nothing in the theater right now, and for a movie like that to only do 45 million, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem when there's nothing else in the theater right now.
Yeah, aside from Dune, it's kind of lagging. It's got an uphill battle. I think it's I would say it's on the low end of a strong opening, because 45, ideally, I'm with Derek, like 50, 55 would probably be the sweet spot to say, yeah, you're kind of in the right direction. But I also think it's not necessarily reflective of the quality of the movie. I think it's more reflective of the fact that Sony kind of put this out a little too early in the year. I think they could have waited another month minimum.
But see, I don't agree with that. I think the fact that this is Ghostbusters, man. This isn't some random franchise. The fact that no one showed up for Ghostbusters, and I'm not talking about the 2016 movie with the chicks, right? I'm talking about the original cast of the Ghostbusters, and they only did 45 million. That's really bad. Dune's been out for what, the past month already. There's no excuse for that movie to have done as bad as it did.
Well,
unless
no,
it got bad word of mouth.
Well, 2016 would be the excuse because it really turned off a lot of people, and Afterlife did okay, but it took a while to get to that okay. And now audiences are still gun shy, and they have every right to be because they've seen other franchises that have followed a pattern of disappointments. This is one of the more prominent ones that's actually on a pattern of critical positive reviews, but it's slowly building up. I don't think the message has actually reached the wider audience saying that Ghostbusters is okay to enjoy again like it was back in the 80s.
Yeah, but we already had Afterlife, and Afterlife was good.
But that's
at
just
least
one.
For me.
That's the thing. Like, that's just one. When it comes to audiences, you need to do more than one in order to earn their trust back. One will kill it, but like 2 or 3 will bring it back. And that's the problem that Hollywood has to face right now. I would argue that you essentially have 2, they've made base twice now with Afterlife and Frozen Empire. The third one will actually be the one that brings it home if they get a third one.
If they get a third one.
And that's a big if, because if this doesn't leg out to the point where they're able to at least domestically make maybe 120 or 150 at the box office, Sony might have apprehensions of continuing the franchise in this area. But Sony doesn't have a streaming service. Sony is able to use other windows of distribution that will generate more income. So that might actually be what offsets it and allows for this franchise to continue if this is the direction it's going to go.
The thing is the consistent thing is I watched a lot of your reviews. I watched reviews on lots of channels, and it's all mixed. I mean, everything is mixed. It's sort of big talking points. There are things to like. A lot of people really enjoyed Kumail Nanjiani's performance. Feel his character added. He was actually very funny. Speaking of that, who do we have here? Ramesh.
Hey.
Speaking of which,
fire. I'm using my fire. I'm the fire master. I just saw the movie like 20 minutes ago. So.
Oh, what's the most awkward way to introduce Ramesh? And I thought, well, that's perfect. I'll bring up one of the better
fire master adjacent.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought all the sex jokes, dungeon jokes were really awkward in that movie.
Well, if we're forced as script writers that to defer to different racial types whenever we get to that character.
Right.
So if I'm writing suddenly a black character, I'm going to have to go to Verbal Riot, and he's going to have to write those lines. If we're going to comment on Rajesh in the movie, we're going to have to talk to our friend here down at the bottom because we're not allowed to comment on him. But thankfully, we've got a person of South Asian persuasion to be able to properly comment so we do not run afoul of all the DEI regulations. I'm just thankful.
No, but see, we don't have a woman on the panel to talk about, McKenna Grace and her character and all that.
So we're not going to talk about them.
We're going to, okay, let's just leave them out. All right, perfect. We'll leave those guys out.
Just so you know, my mom was white from Northern England. So,
well, there you go.
So I'm more Asian than you.
You are. Yeah, you're full.
Well, I want to ask a question. Script, you said this wasn't a good time of the year for this to come out. When would you have brought it out? Summer?
Afterlife came out Thanksgiving weekend.
Afterlife came out
it did just as good Thanksgiving weekend.
Exactly.
So should this have been a summer movie?
This should have been the 40th anniversary celebration of Ghostbusters. You could have paired it up with the other films and done a huge build up, double feature shows, any type of event thing, because how often do you get an on the button decade anniversary? Star Wars missed it by 2 years. They rushed Force Awakens for 2015 when they could have waited to 2017, be like 40 years since the first one. We're starting a new trilogy. Here we go. And instead you've got that. It came out 2 years off. Last Jedi did its thing. And then you have that stupid line in The Rise of Skywalker. This thing happens every 42 years. It's like, well, you clearly don't understand how anniversaries really go when you're doing an even number, but like not a base 10 event, because that's what Star Wars did. I remember the 10-year anniversary quite vividly, and I definitely remember the 20 and 30 when they did stuff like that, DVDs, specials, all that thing. Ghostbusters, it's right there for them. Timing worked out excellently, and Sony kind of flubbed it by a couple months, in my opinion.
I think it's because of the supposed impending strikes, right? So we're in the middle of maybe some bad times, and I think that's
this was supposed to come out last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this was to come out in like October or November of last year. So it got bumped back because of the strikes. So yeah, I think
Right.
you're right. It could have bumped it all the way to June. I think that would have made a lot of sense. You know, everything you said 100%, you know, bring it out at the 40th anniversary. It would have been great. You know, it would have been
But see,
a time to reminisce.
the problem with all that what if stuff is the fact that Dune is doing very well, and it came out a month ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the time of the year. I think people they don't trust the big franchises anymore.
When I saw this, it felt like a summer movie.
They don't
It felt
trust
like
the
a
big
big
franchises
summer movie.
anymore. I'm telling you.
Let me talk about audience for a second. I took my daughter to see it. Teenager, female. She loved it, and a bunch of her and her friends went to see it this weekend. Is it possible maybe that there's a shift in focus rather than making a movie for us old guys who like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, but maybe this is the Gen Z Goosebumps? Maybe that they're.
But you know what though? It shouldn't be. Like for me, I actually like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I actually I enjoyed it.
But
I
my
enjoyed
point
it.
is, but my
I really
point
enjoyed
is that
it.
I enjoyed it.
My point is that the main characters are young. You know, they are the Gen Z,
Right.
and then maybe they are shifting the focus of this audience to the younger crowd, like they did with the animated series.
Well,
And
this
they
is
should.
Gremlins. This is
They
Gremlins
should.
meets Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's a family adventure, as opposed to before it was SNL guys. It was like guys who had been in 1941, right? They had been from SNL. They had been in. You have Bill Murray and Stripes and Caddyshack. So they had a built brand, all of them coming together. You have half this audience. Maybe there is Stranger Things, but it's really the new sort of Ghostbusters mixed with these old, you know, carrying the torch and passing that. I just don't think I really enjoyed the movie. I don't know if you can make another one after this. I feel like this was the sort of swan song. It was getting a little tired by the end of it.
Well, here's the
I
thing.
disagree
I
with
think
everybody
this is for the
here.
older. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I disagree with everybody here. I just want to say that I thought the movie exclusively was the launching pad for the Stay Puft Marshmallow version of the Minions. That's what I thought this was. I thought this was a Minions movie, you know, but with Stay Puft Marshmallow Men. That's what I thought it was. I was really enjoying that part. I thought that was great.
One thing
I
worth
could have
noting.
used more of that.
One thing worth noting is Ernie Hudson is 78.
He was
Yeah.
great.
How
He looks
good
great.
does he look?
Oh,
How
yeah.
good does he
Great.
look?
He was hot.
He's like Shatner energetic.
Yeah, you just had an energy. He looks 20 years at least younger than his age on paper. I mean, I don't know why they didn't give more of an active role. And if we're talking about things we liked and didn't like, the thing that bugged me, that stood out more than anything, which I thought was really irritating, was the whole thing, the golden years discussion about them like, come on, it's our golden years. Let the young, you know what? You could have cut that out of the movie entirely.
Yep.
You didn't need it.
Yeah.
That was
one of
one
the
of the
things-
most cringy scenes.
Yes.
And felt completely dishonest because he had bought the fire station. He had built new gear. He had created a whole new place, someplace else, with science and traps and bigger shit. And he demonstrated that he was completely committed to this whole Ghostbuster thing. And then to lay down that stupid speech, I went, where did that come from?
Okay, but in
That
all
came from
fairness,
nowhere.
in all fairness, he laid down that speech in reference to Ray going out and actually trying to, bust ghosts. I think the way I took it was, hey man, look, we're not these young cats anymore. Yeah. We need to take a step back, let these young bucks do it because we don't have it anymore. It didn't. I don't think he meant like just completely take them out of, the business, just the busting part of it. At least
you
that's
know
what I
what?
got from
I
it.
like my
Kind of
heroes.
there.
Bustin'
He
makes
did
me
say
feel
go to the
good.
beach,
You know what?
you know?
I like my heroes being heroes, even if they're wrong.
Okay,
Yeah.
but okay. I hear you on that. But here's the thing, man. And I was talking about this with somebody else yesterday. At what point does it get sad to watch these old guys still trying to, do it? It's like at some point, I'm sorry, you got to hang it up. It gets sad. You got to pass the torch.
Metallica is still playing.
You got to pass the torch. I'm telling you, at some point, it just looks sad.
I mean,
I
I
think it's
think
about how
don't-
you
this-
pass the torch, though. That to me is what, when it comes to like these older franchises, like you look at Indiana Jones and how they're, they failed, in my opinion, to pass that torch, to someone that's younger that can still carry on these, adventures, because Dial of Destiny clearly didn't work. They didn't get it done with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull either. There's a way to pass the torch where you still are, giving these characters reverence. You're not saying, hey, you guys are just too old for this game. They could have easily, just continued to play. Like Chris said, they could have left that scene out. And what Dan Aykroyd was doing, or I should say Ray Stantz was doing, what, Venkman was doing, they were still involved. It's not like they weren't a part of ghost busting. Or, Zedmore, he's still involved, but just to add that line to it, it's just kind of pointless. It's like, well, you guys are clearly still doing this. You're still a part of the ghost busting franchise. Yeah, to, your point, Dante, maybe, say, hey, we don't need to be doing that. Let's get back to what we're good at. We're like the, old heads in the game. Okay.
The scientist. Be the scientist, right?
Right. We're the scientists. We're the guys that kind of
be the guy out there with the gun hunting the ghost.
Right, they're coming to us for the knowledge, for the the information, for the stuff that they don't have.
Why do we have to pass the torch?
I think there's a better way to do that scene.
If you want to pass the torch properly, you shove a lightsaber through your dad and shove him into a gun.
Lightsabers don't do.
Yeah, I don't think there is any passing of the torch. I mean, if you feel, the opponent, it feels a bit redundant, right? Feels like that's probably the one part where we feel like we've seen this before. I love everything they did about it. It felt like a Joe Dante film, right? It felt like old school sort of visual effects. Even the way it was shot, it felt like sort of something that Joe Dante or Robert Zemeckis would do. I loved all of that. But in terms of just the storytelling, I feel like I don't know where you go from here. Why do you need to pass the torch?
See,
I think just end.
I think in Ghostbusters 3, you could literally get rid of the old crew, maybe bring Dan Aykroyd back, replace everyone else with Patton Oswalt, Kumail, and just focus on the Spengler family. I think that's.
I wouldn't be.
I would guess that would be my guess.
Yeah, it's a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ghostbuster style.
Well, the thing is that you also risk what's called the Harry Potter effect. Now, the Harry Potter effect is where the author intends to write stories that match the target audience as they grow up. You can't really do that with Ghostbusters, and it started that with Afterlife, and that's why when it came out, I said Afterlife is a movie that takes place in the Ghostbusters universe. It's not really a Ghostbusters film. Now we actually have something that's a lot closer to a Ghostbusters film, but it still has that problem, is that some of the audience is supposed to be growing up with McKenna Grace. What was the most brilliant aspect of the original Ghostbusters is that it wasn't targeted for kids. The kids loved the gear stuff of it.
It was an adult,
like the ghost stuff of it, that they just grasped onto it. And when they did something very smart with the sequel, which is, even though they made it a little bit more kid friendly, they didn't bring in an actual teenager or someone of that exact target audience age for people to relate to kind of carry on the journey. I think that's one of the flaws, even though I really liked McKenna Grace in both films. I think that when you kind of gear it towards that, you're kind of missing the overall concept of what is going on with the films, because now you're making it about a coming of age story as opposed to what it should be is a business battling the bureaucracy of the government.
Right. Which the great guy from Die Hard, right? It's the villain from Die Hard, that guy who gets punched in the face at Die Hard. That's the guy who's in the mayor's office.
William Atherton.
I will tell you that my daughter, first one, it was McKenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard. The reason she saw the second movie is because of McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard. I mean, there is that transition there, and there is an age group. The question is that age group bringing in enough money to continue the series?
The question. Is that new audience that they're trying to build enough to sustain this thing going forward?
No, because young people don't watch movies. That's why.
At that part, but I think the essence of the Ghostbusters franchise was really that first movie where, hey, we're bringing in all of these comedians, guys that already have comic backgrounds. Like, one of the biggest problems I had with this film is it just wasn't as funny as I wanted it to be. I wanted this to be. But it's kind
not like the first.
You're right. The jokes did not land.
No, but the jokes did not land. It's a half funny movie. I've actually got a theory on all of this. It was actually purposely not meant to be as funny. There's a whole bunch of movies coming out and have been out for the last few years, which I call half funny. We're no longer getting Weekend at Bernie's. That's almost all gone now. These are half funny movies. They're half real, half funny. And so it's actually, I think, a type.
But the lines did not land. Those funny lines that were
Well,
specifically made to be the comic relief did not land.
Oh no,
Yeah,
the jokes were
banter, like
corny.
that
They were
opening
bad.
scene, the banter that's going back and forth between
Right.
the family as they're driving along trying to catch this
Oh, no,
ghost.
that
I
was
didn't
not
crack
good.
a smile.
No.
And I'm like, I mean, we're supposed to be watching a comedy. This is supposed to be a funny moment. I think that's one of the big problems is that the original Ghostbusters was hilarious. You know, you were constantly laughing. Even I, as a kid, you know, barely, you know, able to, you know what half of those jokes meant. I was laughing. You know, the comedic timing was perfect on those because these guys were actually comics. You know, they were funny. They knew how to be funny. And I think that's one of the problems that you have with this movie.
Well,
that, you know, they don't really have the same, like McKenna Grace. Is she a comedian? No.
They don't have
You
the
know,
gravitas
Paul Rudd,
of the original.
Paul Rudd's a
right.
comedian. You know, Patton Oswalt, obviously, Kumail, I think he's a comedian, a stand-up comic as well. So they have the comic timing and they know how to pull it off. But, you know, when you get Finn Wolfhard and he's supposed to be funny right now, you know, does he have the right delivery for that? Like, because that's where I felt this movie fell flat. That's just my thought.
I don't want to get into comedy theory, but
Okay.
the first Ghostbusters is a juxtaposition movie. This is not a juxtaposition movie. This is a real life ghosts exists movie. So the juxtaposition of the first movie was nerds succeed. They're heroes. That's the juxtaposition. Unexpected individuals who are able to overcome, like a society that would not expect a bunch of these individuals being heroic. That's the juxtaposition of it. That's what made it funny.
With beautiful Sigourney Weaver.
And with stunning Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
And the fact that maybe they could get the girl. That's also juxtaposition because no one expects the nerds to get the girl. And this movie has none of that. There is no juxtaposition jokes, maybe because there's none left to be found. So yeah, the style of that first movie was unique. You're never going to be able to capture that again. So they had to go in a different course, which was Ghostbusters mashed up with what's the show that Finn was in?
Stranger
Things.
So this was a mashup of Stranger Things and Ghostbusters, and I actually agreed with that approach because you're never going to get that that first film.
Okay,
again.
but the question is, then why did
They
Afterlife
tried with
work?
Paul Feig. They tried that with the.
Why did Afterlife work then?
I like this movie better than Afterlife.
Oh, see, not me. I thought Afterlife was way better.
Well, I think to me,
Afterlife
Afterlife worked because it was it didn't
Nostalgic.
have for most of the film, the old gang wasn't there, and so it was a new retelling of the Ghostbusters story, and I think that resonated with the younger audiences. You know, I'll be honest. The reason I saw the first Ghostbusters, it was because of Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray because of Saturday Night Live, and Harold Ramis and Rick Moranis from SCTV. You know, I wanted to see a movie with them in it and doing crazy things with ghosts.
Sure.
And that was the draw. The actors, the leads were the draw for that movie. This movie doesn't have that.
No.
This feels more like a Ghostbuster movie than Afterlife, though. This does feel more like.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
I am
think
the
that's why they're
key
transitioning
master.
There's some good questions in the chat I want to get to, but I got to tell a story about Dante and I on Friday night. So we're out where we're going to see Immaculate, a movie both of us have already seen, but because Sydney Sweeney's going to be there for post-screening Q&A, we're hanging out with our buddy Sifax, who is a member of the channel, AJ, really good guy. And he actually came up with, he's not in the industry, he's not an industry guy. He came up with what I thought was like a better pitch for this movie than the movie that we saw, which was a real simple passing of the torch. There's this device, of course, that Phoebe's character uses where she becomes a ghostly, you know, she becomes she has an out-of-body experience. She's able to do other things. It would have been interesting to see in some climax, the original Ghostbusters are there, right? All of them, you know, Ernie Hudson, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, they're
like
there.
Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, and there's just some way, wait, I'm getting to it. Some way, this is, he was sort of talking to us about this idea that like the only way they could have stopped the current threat was if they crossed over to the spirit realm. So they use the device, they
That's a
go
great
over,
idea.
they reunite with Egon.
Yeah, love it.
Touching moment. Maybe some way they have to sacrifice themselves,
And
and
they all
they
die. Yeah.
actually pass the torch to a new group of Ghostbusters, which could have included Kumail Nanjiani or whoever, other comedians. But I feel like everything was just,
That's
the
a great
script was
idea.
Chris, that is a great idea.
Too many characters. It was ADD. It was all over the map. not my idea, but when he told me, I'm like, my whole imagination's going, that's better than what I saw because everything was
There's
such
potential.
a mess.
Yeah.
It had potential. It was such a mess. It was such a mess.
Yeah, no, this movie was absolutely a mess. When I say I enjoyed it, I just meant that, hey, you know what?
Oh.
It felt like a Ghostbusters movie. There were some nostalgia moments that I really liked. I mean, it hit all the right points, but no, it's not a great movie. Like I could pick it apart easily.
Oh yeah,
it's really tight in the first act, but then when it gets to the second act, you're right, it meanders. There's way too many characters, too many.
It takes way too long to get to the big bad in this film. Way too long.
I think
it doesn't.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the first film probably worked for people, then the second film didn't, because of the number of characters and the number of storylines and the number of story threads that you had to kind of filter through. You know, everybody's got some sort of a story going on, and it's like, okay, we got like I don't know how many characters. We got the original 3 Ghostbusters, plus, you know, Annie Potts joining, you know, the 4 characters that we had from the last film, plus podcast, you know, plus the girl, what's her, I forgot her name, the girl that Lucky. Plus we got Lucky, and okay, what's going on with her? And then we got the ghost girl, and what's her story? It's like, okay, we got way too much going on right here. It's too much. And they really needed to peel back from the amount of characters that they had, because it's kind of hard to figure this thing out. And I think that's
like
why the original. I think that's why the original one.
You're too old. You can't handle it.
It's also missing the mystery aspect. The first Ghostbusters was a mystery of why are these ghosts coming to New York and what's going on. The second Ghostbusters, why are these ghosts? We had the same thing. We kind of had a little bit of that with Afterlife, but we didn't really get into that minutia with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And one of the things that's actually a staple of the Ghostbusters, the franchise itself, and how the movies are structured, is that there's always like a montage of them getting closer to the understanding the mystery by, you know, busting other ghosts. We never got that. We got one set piece at the beginning of the film. We then dwindle around between Finn and McKenna Grace's character. We get the side plot of Melody's character coming in. And that's usually done really just to echo the aspect of what happened in Afterlife. Like, this is really more of a direct sequel to Afterlife and following that formula than it is trying to recapture and expand upon the traditional Ghostbusters formula, because it even ends the same way with that spirit transporting back into crossing over, which is what Egon did. So I think what happens here is that these two filmmakers, while they definitely have their hearts in the right place, and they have to understand enough of the lore, they're missing the aspect of the pacing of the story and the type of stories that these films are supposed to be, which is it's a teamwork story, and the antagonist, and it's a 2-tier antagonist. There's the bureaucratic side that's trying to, you know, crush the small business that's just trying to do good and help people. And then there's the spiritual side where it's going to basically try and dominate the rest of the world. And there's an irony to that. It's basically two powers going against this small independent company. And the independent company is fighting for freedom. You've got, you know, Gozer the Gozerian trying to take over the world. And then you've got the New York government trying to shut down, or the EPA trying to shut down Ghostbusters to take over, to maintain their control of the city. Even though the Ghostbusters aren't even a threat to any of that stuff. It's just they're doing something that they don't like. And when you don't have that aspect and you don't really have that tug of war, even though they wedge it into this movie, but they don't actually give it a stake or a payoff at all. And they rush the ending, unfortunately.
Sorry about that. A question. How much studio meddling led to this mess? I get the feeling that there was a checklist of casting, and you could have easily left out Podcast and Lucky. No disrespect to those characters, who I actually thought were really good characters in Afterlife. I thought they were very good. What were they there to do? It was so all over the place. Was it the filmmakers, Jason Reitman, and then the guy who's the director? He's also the co-writer.
Kanan.
Yeah. Were they just trying to, like, the studio masters saying, because think of this, the original Ghostbusters was from an idea that Dan Aykroyd had. Was a very different movie than what Dan Aykroyd originally envisioned. He saw a much more serious movie. And, you know, but it comes from a place of nobody hired Dan Aykroyd to, hey, make a movie called The Ghostbusters. No, this is a corporation saying we need to continue a franchise. Here's the things you have to do. Now thread that needle. Good luck, Gil and Jason. How much of it was the corporate meddling?
I'm sure that had a huge part of it, man. I mean, and let's be real here. I mean, as we're watching this movie, I'm sorry, really quick. As we're watching this movie, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I just felt like, okay, they're setting up so much for everything else except the actual story of the film, right? Like it seemed like they were setting up for this Ghostbusters extended universe, right? With the new headquarters and the new traps and
Yes.
it seemed like they were setting up something. It felt like a Marvel movie, an MCU movie on some level, and I felt like that kind of took away. Well, number one, it made the movie too long. It also just made the story weaker because, like I said, it took so long to get to the final boss that by the time it got to him, it was no time to do anything. So I guarantee you that was all the studio.
I agree with you 100%. Even the whole where they have the new headquarters and they have that sort of prison. It felt like, is it Jurassic World where they have all the dinosaurs in? You're right.
Well,
it's
they've been trying
to.
Bigger. So they've been trying to go. So before Ghost Corps existed, Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd and even Harold Ramis at the time in the 90s was trying to get a third movie because they wanted to eventually do something called Ghostbusters International. And that was going to be the fourth film where they actually expanded out, because the third one they want to do was Ghostbusters Go to Hell. And I've got those scripts and those treatments, and I know exactly how they're going to use Chris Farley in that before he passed away. And I mean, it all had potential. It was very, very techy, tons of cool gadgets and things going on there. But for whatever reason, some attribute it to Bill Murray not wanting to participate. Others attribute it to the fact that Sony didn't want to invest in that at the time. They didn't think it was a franchise worth liquidity or worth profit at the time. It's not liquidity, apologize. But I think that's the direction they're trying to do, is like, now that they've got the franchise kind of, the engine has restarted again. It's got life and there's still some gas in the tank. They kind of want to see, all right, let's hit the ground while we're running. And I think it was kind of foolish of them to try and build that setup in a good third of this film, as opposed to let the story play out, because the ending would already preclude such a setup anyways, just because you already brought in a couple of extra characters. They spent too much time on like the documentary aspects of it. Like, let's go to the paranormal research facility and let's just do a tour of that. Let's go and see the mayor's office and show that conflict there. And we only really get one real ghost busting scene out of the film. And I think it's smart that they did it, but I just think that they spend a little bit money, right money onto some of the wrong things. And it definitely hurt the pacing. And I also think the human supernatural aspect of it, even though Kumail Nanjiani did a very fine job, I think that kind of breaks a little bit of what the Ghostbusters did, which is that it's science versus the supernatural. It's not supernatural versus the supernatural.
Here's a good question from the chat, and we are going to get to your chat comments and questions there and super chats. So my apologies not getting to it sooner. But Jay Jones asks, what IPs have passed the torch well? Just Star out of Trek. Curiosity. I can only think of one myself, and that's Picard season 3, passing on from the Next Generation to potentially a new
Mission Impossible from the TV series to. I guess it really hasn't passed though, right?
Well, they passed the torch.
No, they took the torch.
They killed the original cast.
Yeah, they killed Jim.
The new cast is here. I think that happened in Picard season 3, which no matter how much you tell people, please watch it, it's hard to get people to jump in because Star Trek has been such a mess on Paramount Plus. But I think anyone else have a response to this question?
Well, the original Star Trek Next Generation had a passing of the torch. They had DeForest Kelley come in and do that little scene. Right. It was soft and subtle, but it was effective enough, and they ran with it. It's really hard to find franchises that last that long. Ernie Hudson is, I mean, one of the reasons why he wasn't in this film so much is that he was also doing Quantum Leap, which I would argue is a terrible sequel follow-up to the original. But Ernie Hudson is in that. He's a main character in that. So clearly he had to go between that set and this one with productions. And that's probably why we didn't get a whole lot of him in this film, unfortunately, because I thought Winston was a great character. There's really not a lot they can say of passing of the torch. Maybe Power Rangers did it well because they had so many seasons in the 90s of different teams, and they barely lost momentum until Disney acquired them. And then,
you know what, even Ultraman did a horrendous job. They turned Ultraman into Power Rangers, which really pissed me off.
Can anyone think of a good passing of the torch?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. The only one I can think of, and it's a very, very random passing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Cobra Kai. That was
Cobra Kai,
script.
Yeah, I was going to say Cobra Kai, or actually that was on my list, and I was also going to say, and this is really random, this show called Degrassi.
Oh God.
Oh,
Like,
God.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen that,
Great.
but
Hey,
I swear
Yeah,
it's
Paul
one of
has
the best
seen it.
passing of the torches that I've seen in a show or just that medium. Period.
They've done it like 4 times now, haven't they? Because
Yes, and they did it, and they do it so well. They did it so well because of the fact that what they did was
they
they had
graduate.
their originals, right? They had the crew, but they sprinkled in these new characters, and you spend a little time with them. So by the time it was time for the older cast to leave, you already know the new cast,
Mhm.
and so you jump right into it, right? But you can't do that with a film. It's hard to do that with movies.
What do y'all
Mhm.
think of and I know from a quality standpoint it's never really been as good as the original, but from a monetary standpoint it's always made money and it's about to, pass the torch, I guess, again. The Jurassic Park franchise, from Jurassic Park the original 3, then we get to the Jurassic World and we start bleeding that in, and I guess now there's a new one with Scarlett that's supposed to be in the works. I mean, maybe it's not quality, but they've made $1 billion off of all of these films. It's not like they're not making money off of it. People are still interested. Or is that just the dinosaurs? Like, people just want to go see dinosaurs eat people and that's it. As long as dinosaurs are eating people, I'm all on board,
I think that's it.
I don't think
wonder
the
if-
Jurassic Park trilogy is something we watched. I mean, it was the first one, and then it went downhill from there.
Yeah, it's
So
all
the-
downhill after that. I mean, the first
know,
one is the only good one.
I've always
But
said
I mean,
it's
they've all made money. They've all been like successful,
Sure.
I've always said if you're going to do like James Bond, you need to go back to the 60s, or you need to go back in time to a more classic time. You shouldn't go forward. There's no reason you can't go back.
Period pieces have a value to them, especially now that the 1940s to the 1980s is a great period to keep some stories grounded. One of the worst mistakes that Marvel as a comic book company made that they're paying for now is they anchored some of their characters to pivotal historical events that now, because we're so far away from them, they're now too old to actually maintain the verisimilitude of. Magneto being a Holocaust survivor at 10 years old in 1940, he would be 100, close to 100 right now. And you can't have him in modern day do those things. So it really is a better idea to maintain stuff in the 60s. That's where I think X-Men First Class kind of got it right. And then they botched that because they got rid of the creative team for the sequel. Bryan Singer decided to come in and inject himself and do the things that he did with those films, and then rush it towards the 90s because they wanted to kind of capture the nostalgia of the 90s cartoon show, which Marvel is now doing again right now. And so I think that's, to your point, is there's certain genres that are very much anchored into that period piece time, just like how Hercules is ancient Greece, and just like how Sherlock Holmes is like, the late 1800s, early 1900s. Those things are appropriate for it. You don't actually have to always put it in contemporary times just for the sake of maybe saving some money on location shoots.
The best handoff I ever saw was George Burns' show. He produced the Burns and Allen TV show, which was kind of a weird, surreal sitcom anyway, in front of a live audience. And he was in, because he produced it, he also did the negotiations for everybody's salary. And this one secondary character, I can picture his face, I don't know the actor's name, asked for too much money. Burns fired him, hired a new guy, but they made the switch live on TV. So the first guy walks onto the stage, comes in, and George Burns goes, "Well, it's really nice to have you here, but you're gone." He goes, "Oh yeah, I know." He walks out the door, and now introducing the replacement to Barry. Here's Gene Edwards. And then the guy comes in, stands where the other guy stood, and then they continued their lines. I've never seen anyone do something like that. Fired on air, and good on the original actor too, to go with the gag. So that's the best handoff I can recall.
We've got super chats in here, a lot of comments and questions. I want to go through them real quick and continue our conversation. Don't want to break up the momentum here, but good answer here from Rumble. 8Ls24 says Creed was a very solid passing of the torch.
Yeah.
How could we have forgotten Creed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
That one was great.
It only hurt the Apollo character himself, because I think instead of him being a child out of wedlock, it would have been nice if it was Apollo was with his wife the night before he died, and then she finds out she's pregnant while Rocky's, in Russia, because then it doesn't break the honor that Apollo Creed had across those films. I think that was a fault of a negative trope, a negative stereotype that could be played into that. I'm surprised Coolidge decided to go that way. That was weirdly weird. But aside from that, I thought Creed was pretty darn good.
Jamin D gifted 10 Film Threat memberships. Thank you for that. Join us on Discord. Check the community tab. There's a lot of Sydney Sweeney in the videos for members only, oddly. I don't know how they all got there.
In the flesh.
Yeah. Jay for 2 says Ghostbusters felt like a kids Nickelodeon show. Parts of it, unfortunately, I agree.
Yeah.
Chris 224M for 5 says, I believe that Ghostbusters 3 should have been out in the 90s. Do y'all blame Bill Murray for that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He's a contributor to it, a significant one. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if you remember, he was on the Howard Stern show doing an interview, and he talked about how that script was sitting in an envelope on his desk, and he hadn't read it yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Busters, what do you want? Says the Paladin Jock for $4.99. Appreciate the support for the channel. Thank you so much. Oliver Lavery Farag for 20 pounds. Hopefully I said that right. Lavery Farag. I liked it. I know it's not as good as the original, but to be honest, neither is Ghostbusters 2.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be perfect, but I laughed all the way through it and had a great time. Bustin' still makes me feel good. And our friend Mexican Iron Man for $4.99. My pick for best passing a literal torch on Earth would be Oppenheimer to -1 Godzilla.
Oh, that's true.
So there you go. That I don't know how
funny.
you feel about that. And this is an interesting super chat here that will lead to a discussion. Bat Dan for 92 for 2, who's a member, says, can a lesbian ghost queef? First of all, I'm not sure.
Fiction. Requires
But
friction for one thing.
there has been some debate about was there lesbian interest. I'm gonna say there was.
Of course.
There was. And it was pretty overt that Phoebe felt lonely, was looking for a friend, and it was very. Had it gone on just a little bit longer, I could see not necessarily a queef, but a kiss for sure. What are your thoughts on the I mean, it's at the very least it's gay coded.
Yeah.
But it just
Love
felt
Lies
that way.
Bleeding, Ghostbuster style. Yeah.
Well, it could be gay coded, or it could be just people on the opposite side of the aisle looking at this the same way people on another side of the aisle looked at Finn and Poe after The Force Awakens, where they're saying those two were gay coded, they were great lovers and stuff. And we're like, those are just two guys really happy to have survived a very tumultuous event. That's the other part too. It's like, yeah, she was being ostracized, and for some reason, it felt I could definitely see the gay coding aspect because, well, if podcast is there, why should you go to podcast? That's her friend. Why should you talk to him about this type of stuff? Why? I think they brought in this ghost stuff because they not necessarily to create a lesbian relationship or anything of that nature, but they wanted to repeat the same type of connection that Phoebe had with Egon's ghost in the previous film. And I think this is the way that they did it. And I think it was a low hanging fruit, lazy execution of it. And
well, it's very ambiguous
in the film itself.
It's very ambiguous because they have the whole sex dungeon thing that went on and on and on about the grandmother.
Phoebe wasn't really there for that.
None of that.
No, but it was all. But I'm saying they didn't have that. It just felt unnecessary. All of it. There was lingering looks.
Yeah, to me, it was the way it was shot. The moments when the two of them were alone together, the way it was filmed, the way it was edited, the way the camera moved, the way that their faces looked. That to me was the indication. No, this is a ghost lesbian scene.
Especially when they were both ghosts, and like Phoebe, she approaches the Melody character. She approaches, and they're like right there, like face to face, and she's staring into her eyes. I mean, that was clear to me that that's what that was supposed to represent, like some kind of emotional attraction or feeling or something.
It's ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
Oh no.
And if both characters were 10 years older, it would have been a hot scene as hell.
Yeah,
I felt like it was very overt. I felt like they weren't being subtle at all. But here's the thing. I'll also be honest. It didn't bug me. Like for some reason, their relationship didn't bug me.
You know what it is? When I was watching it, it was like, oh, here we go.
Well, because you know what? Because it was subtle enough. Even though it wasn't subtle, it was subtle enough. Like it was a crush, right? It felt more like a crush than them actually having something together.
Right. I was wishing for girl on apparition action.
Yeah, like Ghost. Like Ghost.
I'll say, Alan, you see a lot of the little indie movies that we get at Film Threat have a lot of lesbian content. So based on your lesbian expertise, could you would you
They
give
reenact it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, you know, what it looks like it was pretty. I mean, it was all there to me, and I'm not looking for it. It's not like I'm looking. It just felt like, oh, there's more interest here than just a friend because I'm sad. Because you pointed out she could have gone to a podcast or Lucky or whatever.
Well, I worked with a lot of lesbians in the 90s. And there was definitely some gaydar action. I could feel it.
But the other part too, you also have to remember what Hollywood does most when they're dealing with love interests. There's either a huge resistance of the attraction, or it's a love at first sight type of thing. There wasn't.
I didn't mind it.
She was playing it matter of factly, like, oh, a ghost appeared while she's playing chess. Okay, and she just takes it matter of factly. She doesn't care that the ghost is female or anything of that nature. In which case, I'm like, well, that's what does Hollywood normally do with these types of situations? They either have the one character very upset or angry against the other one, thus to create this spark of interest, or they have a love at first sight moment. There's nothing in between. And what we have here is neither. We actually had something that felt more akin to a similar meeting between her and podcast, where the ghost introduces herself to Phoebe, and Phoebe's like, okay. And I'm like, all right, that's what it is. Now, the other scenes, like them walking on the street, definitely could lead to something else, because there's some sort of intimate tone going on between those two. And then, of course, the obvious part where she extracts her spirit for 2 minutes. Yeah, that was also kind of weird. I'm like, I don't understand the point of why she would do this. It feels very contrived. And we find out it's one part contrived for the plot and the other part contrived for the betrayal.
Yeah, that's the thing
More
that
the
bothered
betrayal.
me was
Yeah.
I didn't understand, because the whole point was the main bad guy needed to lure Phoebe into that chamber to get her spirit taken out, to bridge that gap. But I just didn't feel like that it worked, that it made
Neither did
sense in the
There
way
was
that it
nothing-
played out.
It wasn't compelling
Yeah.
enough. Why
Yeah.
did she have to? It wasn't like
They never really
made no
connected
sense,
those dots
and
for me either.
it goes back to what I said about they waited too long to bring out the big bad. Like, if that was the plot point, then they failed. They failed.
Yeah, because I honestly don't understand how Melody trapped Phoebe into doing what she did.
right.
Because I don't think she did. It just felt like it was totally narrative driven, that they had to do it.
They had to
And
get it done.
and that they didn't need to set it up to bring some context to it.
Even the
was
fire
there
master
any-
takes too long. It's like the gatekeeper or the
Was there any
master
point-
thing, right.
Was there any point in the story where we could tell this is what, I forgot the ghost's name, was it Garado
Melody.
or something? No,
Melody.
the villain, the main villain, was driving Melody to do this. Was there any
yeah.
point in the story
Yeah,
where
Melody points out that she's gonna do what she's gonna do for
see her
the
family.
big bad guy.
Yeah, to
Right,
see
so
her
she can
family,
see
to
her
get to
family,
the other
but-
side.
at
big
what
bad
point in
guy's
time
name
did
was
we
Trevor.
know that
But it was
this
that specific action that had to be done.
right?
And then
So
she says,
where
"Oh, you could do
that,
it yourself." It was stupid, right?
Right,
Oh,
yeah,
I
so-
just needed to give you the flame, and then I can go to the other side.
Mhm.
That's the whole
Yeah.
match. Right. It was.
Yeah, it was missing a proper discussion of what this story plot meant, because you have this other contradiction. If the bad guy is trapped in this brass thing, how is it able to communicate with other ghosts? How is it able to do these ice little things that's happening here? Where's the compromised trap aspect of it? We didn't really get anything of that nature. Even when they did the extraction stuff, it didn't work. So it's filled with a bunch of really early ideas that I think
Right.
were sacrificed in the development aspect just to meet a deadline.
It's a weak
it just
dangling
it took a lot. There was a lot of stuff that had to happen, a lot of convenient plot points. Like they had to go get the what was it, like a cylinder or something? They had to get the cylinders so that they could play the voice from the original recording from back 100 years ago. They had to get that, and then they had to be in this particular place at this particular time. Phoebe had to turn herself into a ghost, and like all of this stuff had to happen.
Well,
it was so convenient, and that
would've
was
The
made more
whole
sense.
convenience
I just
of
got
your
completely lost.
fire master is also the guy who's selling it's like the Mowgli, right? It's like like Gremlins. He's selling that, but he also happens to be the guy that is going to defeat the monster at the end too. And that
It would actually have been better if he was the guy that was just doing this to get the Ghostbusters resources to break open the things so that he could usher in this part. If he was the
That's what I thought he was. I thought Kamal was
Would've
going to be
made-
the bad guy. at
he was
one
in
point.
on it.
Like,
Yeah.
like
That would've been
the
really good.
smart. Yeah,
would have skipped all
Dracula's
those other convolutions,
Renfro.
because there's the human person, and the only thing he needs is, I don't know what the chant is. All I know is that the Ghostbusters find out what that chant is. I can get that chant. I can utter it. I can unleash
Right.
the devil thing to the world. Simple.
Yep.
Easy stuff. to
That's
do.
where I thought they were going.
Now,
Yeah,
for me, the thing is
only
though,
white people are allowed to be villains in modern movies. Sorry,
Mhm.
Ramesh.
he was pretty white. The
That
thing
is the
for me-
rule now.
the
He's
thing
married
for
to a
me
white
is
woman, so
that
it could work.
everything that you guys have said is correct. Okay, but I enjoyed the movie, and I talked about it earlier on
fun.
Midnight's Edge today, and is that it's one of the few movies I've seen of late where it just felt like a movie, like back in the days when I just went to
Right.
see movies.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
there wasn't this kind of deconstruction conversation, and it's fun to have these. I am not saying don't do it. It is kind of a YouTubey disease, but you know, we are, you know, we want better things from the pop culture franchises that we remember, like Ghostbusters, Star Trek, Star Wars, and this is, you know, we're not deconstructing. I don't know. I pick a movie like Legally Blonde. I mean, we're not doing that, but
Yeah.
Legally Blonde was a great movie, and it was just a movie. And this felt, even with all its problems, I actually just went, okay, this was not a waste of my time in the same way that Little Mermaid was.
Correct.
And so I was thankful for that. So that's part one of my comment. Part two of my comment was, and vis-a-vis the budgets and everything, is that this is now a wake-up call that this is not how, I mean, we've already had this wake-up call, but a new reality is setting in. That if you could have done this movie for $60 million, you're going to make money on it. And I'm happy for that. You know, keep the budgets low. I mean,
This was 30 million, right? Was this
30 million?
No, this is 100.
100
Oh,
million.
100 million. Sorry.
100
I'm
million.
saying the original was 30 million.
Yes,
so that,
it was 30.
yeah.
And this is, you know, look at Godzilla -1. I mean, that's a ridiculously low budget. But I think we're now hitting these new realities. I'm hoping the theater, the studios go, we can't spend a shit ton of money on these movies anymore. Let's just make them lower budgets, and let's hit singles and doubles and just make more movies.
They will. You'll see.
Okay, I agree with that
Already
to an
changing.
extent, because I feel like, yeah, sure, Godzilla -1 is the example of, hey, they took this small budget and did this big thing, right? But we're talking about a blockbuster studio film with actors who expect a certain paycheck, right?
Right.
So it's
In
never going to
March.
be, it's not going to be a $30 million film, right? And 100 million isn't bad for a film like this,
Right.
like it really isn't.
But they shouldn't be spending it on. It shouldn't be more than $50-60 million. They should find a way. This is.
I don't think that's possible, man. I don't.
Not
think
with actor budgets. Not with the actor budgets.
not at
That's
all.
what they used to say when we went from film to digital, right? Oh, it'll be cheaper. It'll be simpler. It'll be easier. We won't need all the people we needed for film.
No developing
That was the whole
costs.
argument.
This
Yeah.
camera's way cheaper
Exactly.
than an Airy.
Right.
I can fit an
That
entire
was the
movie
whole
on it.
argument.
Right,
And it
but
takes
we're
the same
talking
amount of
about
people.
but we're talking about actors' paychecks here too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that will, of course.
And that's a very real budget item.
Yeah, Bill
the
Murray
more-
just probably came for the weekend, right?
Look, what about the movie with Jennifer Lawrence? What percentage of that movie was the one where she was trying to?
Well, she's a
shag-
producer
sh-
on it, so I'm sure
she
she
was-
took a cut. A pay
Yeah,
cut.
she got back in.
Well, she has
That's
a
right.
nice
Yes,
back
he
end.
did.
Yeah, I mean, anyone but you is
Yeah.
another example. It probably made for like $30 million, produced by Sydney Sweeney, and it made what? Has it gone over the $100 million mark? I'm pretty sure it has.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
done way better than ever expected.
Speaking of studios, I got to run. So thank
Oh,
you.
you gotta
for having
run?
me on here. Yeah, I have another meeting.
All
Thank you very
right.
much.
Good luck.
Yeah.
All right.
Keep talking.
Take
Hey,
care,
thanks,
Ramesh.
guys.
See you
Thanks
soon.
for having me.
See you,
Later.
sir.
Bye,
Bye,
Ramesh.
Quick question from the chat here. We're going to go to super chats shortly here. Aaron Taylor asks, who's a member, how much creative control does Dan Aykroyd seem to have? He seemed to take delight in the failure of the 2016 version, specifically said he made suggestions that were shot down. Well, I think there's so many suggestions of things you could have done to make the 2016. I mean, look, I saw it on opening night with maybe 7 or 8 other people in a theater. There were about 10 of us total. And wow, it was like very few laughs. And I like those actresses. I have no problem with any of those actresses individually and their comedy work, but 2016 Ghostbusters is a bad movie that leaned into hating its audience. So it was like bad movie. You're actually attacking the audience before it even opened. It was being mocked. It was also one of the first trailers on YouTube to get so much backlash the trailer got backlash. That was something new. That was something that wasn't a thing. Now you've got, the Acolyte series, the first Star Wars trailer to be ratioed, meaning more people downvoted it than upvoted it. And that is a whole, I have no idea what the Acolyte's going to be. I've heard rumors about what the story is. It actually doesn't sound terrible. I think that it's not, I think the core audience is not going to care. And I'm part of that core audience. So it looks bad.
There's an internal truth to all these IPs. So just quickly on 2016, I was talking about the charm of the first movie, and the second one is the juxtaposition. The moment I saw that Leslie Jones was a ticket taker for the New York subway system, I knew they didn't get it. Immediately, I went, Leslie Jones should have been the smartest person in the room. She should have been the scientist, like the best scientist. It's the big black woman who knows her nuclear physics. That would have been the juxtaposition that movie needed to show right off the top. And they fucked that up. And
Disney just contacted me. They want your contact info, Paul, just so I can pass it along to them.
Sure.
They're very happy with what you just said.
So you need to know the core of this stuff. So as soon as I saw that they had not lived up to the philosophy of the first movie, just through the Leslie Jones casting, I knew that they had blown it. Now, notwithstanding the fact that McKinnon, whatever her name is,
McKenna Grace.
No.
Oh, Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon
was actually performing in a different movie. Like I couldn't guess what movie she was actually acting in, but she was actually on another astral plane acting in another movie. I just had to try to guess which one it was.
She was like a female Doc Brown from back.
Yeah, I guess so. Not quite as good. Anyway, so you want to see that. You want to be able to, you have to go to the core, philosophical or emotional core of these movies and see if the truth is still there. And whether the filmmakers have managed to just at least capture that aspect of those original movies.
The question from Aaron Taylor is, how much creative control does Dan Aykroyd have? I would say very little, because 2016 Ghostbusters was made. It was made, and he said that his suggestions were, so I don't think he has a lot of sway. I think that if he's on camera, he has sway about his character, right?
Well, he was in it.
Well, he owns a part of the Ghostbusters franchise along with Bill Murray and co. So I think what ended up happening on the 2016 part is he technically licensed out the Ghostbusters film, and that kind of gave him a separation where he licensed it out. He doesn't have control over what they do. He can put an input, they can disregard it. But with
he gets a check for it. Yeah.
And he gets a check for it. But with Afterlife and with Frozen Empire, he hasn't licensed it out to him. That's part of Ghost Corps, which is a part of his company. And he didn't license it out. He basically says, this is going to be my movie. He is a proper producer on this as well. I think that gave him a lot of control, and we can see some of it in there, especially with some of the gadgets that's going on, that Winston Zedmore introduces to the crew too. His excitement about the new packs, like he made a whole little thing about that. The techno babble of the containment unit towards the climax, that's very Dan Aykroyd stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for the crazy dialogue he had to say, he felt very comfortable saying it.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
That's his wheelhouse. That's what he believes in. That's how he rocks. So
he wasn't acting.
Look, the stuff with Dan Aykroyd, I loved everything that he did in this film. I was really enjoying Ray Stantz being back in his element, fighting, busting ghosts. Like, to me, I would watch a movie with him, just training up a young group of Ghostbusters if they decided to go Ghostbusters International.
I agree.
Ray Stantz is going to, some other foreign country and saying, okay, this is how you guys are going to have to fight these ghosts, and maybe they have to do, things a little different, maybe in Shanghai somewhere, they had to do things a little different, or they got to do things different in another part of the world. I would absolutely love that. I think that this is Dan Aykroyd at his best. And I would love to continue to watch him. I'm not sure I'm in love with these new characters, and I like Paul Rudd. I think he's a good actor, but I don't know if I'm in love with, what is his name? Gruber.
That's a good point.
I'm not in love with that guy. I like Finn Wolfhard in Stranger Things. I don't know if I like him here. I thought McKenna Grace is fine, but if you're trying to pass the torch and you got this group of characters, do people want to continue to see these characters moving forward in the next film? Are they, still attached and holding on to Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and, Ernie Hudson and Annie Potts and, those characters, and I felt like that's maybe I'm just old, but that's what I loved about this film, seeing, Dan Aykroyd and his, Ray Stantz back in his element.
Well, he did one thing that was out of character, and that's the Antiques Roadshow bit. That is more of a Bill Murray, Peter Venkman style thing. But I get why they did it, and I saw the fun that was there. But it's like, okay, you got Dan Aykroyd doing something that I don't think the Ray Stantz character would actually ever do, and broadcast it. Peter Venkman, totally, he would do everything of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the other part too. Where's the funny gimmick where they're doing experiments that are absolutely, utterly ridiculous? Like the whole marriage counselor waiting in the office for 3 hours and turning up the heat just to get them more just to get the couple more frustrated, and then giving the girl a puppy, and then finding out how she's going to emotionally react when they take away the puppy. Those are silly, fun things. Or the negative reinforcement on psychic ability test that Bankman's doing at the beginning of the movie. Those are funny gags to set up the fact that these guys are kind of out there and crazy, but they, as out there and crazy as they are, when it comes to the paranormal, they actually know how to get things done.
I think what you're saying is that we miss Harold Ramis. The man was a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Like who has replaced Harold Ramis? I mean, what a string of unbelievable movies he made.
Yeah.
The Spengler family replaced Harold Ramis.
Yeah, the whole family. But the other thing, just to casually mention, no reference to the original Ghostbusters Ghost Blowjob. I think that would have been very interesting if Dan Aykroyd was searching for the ghost that gave him ghost head. I think that is something.
As far as you know, it was just that. It could have gotten further. We don't know. They cut.
Yeah, I mean that it's a weird sort of offhand visual joke, which they would never do today.
No,
they would never do today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Also, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room here, man. I think the worst part of this movie, the worst thing about this movie for me was Finn Wolfhard. You know what? Honestly, I felt like if he wasn't there, it wouldn't have changed anything.
It
would have been shorter runtime.
It would have been better. It would have been better if they sent him to college and just kept McKenna Grace, and that would have saved on time.
Finn
it would
did
have
nothing.
saved on dumb jokes that didn't land.
Yeah,
I felt like Wolf.
Agree.
I felt like Finn should not have even been in this movie.
Yep.
They gave him one bit when he was trying to catch Slimer. They doubled down and did that twice. And I was like, I don't understand this. So, again, they don't have anything for these characters to do. That's why it's too many characters. You got to pull some of these characters out because all right, we got Finn in here. We got to give him something to do. All right, let's have him try to, catch Slimer and then lose, I guess, try to catch him twice and then fail twice. And that's supposed to be comedy.
Shoot the goddamn thing. I kept yelling at the screen. Shoot it. Like, fire it. Like, what do you mean? He's right there. Shoot!
Yeah,
but
it's
you know what?
It's
to be honest, too, like, why do we need Slimer? We didn't even need Slimer in this movie
because he's in the first movie.
It accomplished nothing.
Yeah, it was a member berry.
You got to sell Slimer stuff, so there it is.
The whole movie felt like one of those. You ever see those YouTube videos where you're like, it's an entire season, and in 20-30 minutes they do a little encapsulation of a previous season of a TV show that's like coming back. So you just watch it and it's like, here's all the plots. It felt there were so many subplots, so many B plots, so many for every character had their own little arc. It just felt like an entire season of the Ghostbusters TV show.
That's somehow I felt, except for the ones that the gentleman here, Dante and everyone else has mentioned, except for those screw ups, I just found I was very comfortable with this film. I mean, there was a nice little coat I put on.
I didn't hate it at all going out. I mean,
it's got a lot.
I had a good time.
Vibes. Well, one of the tricks that I found out is that 7 is the magic number when it comes to characters in a story, and this one had, I think, 12.
Wow.
And that's the problem because you have the original. You had 4 Ghostbusters, and I'm including Janine in that. Then you had the family, which is also a 4, so that's 8 right off the bat. Then you got the new tech guy. Then you got Lucky. Then you got Podcast. Then you got William Atherton. you have just overloaded your script with all these extra characters.
And
that
you
are
got
not really
Kamal.
needed.
Yeah, Kamal and Patton Oswalt.
Yeah,
Well, Patton Oswalt had 2 scenes, and they were
That's
way
true.
too many.
Kamal.
Could have cut him out.
Definitely
Kamal. You got
They could've
Kamal.
cut
Like,
him out,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, I want to catch up on super chats and then we'll return to the conversation. But real important, we've got over 900 people watching on YouTube,
Nice.
on Rumble. I don't know how many you have on Rumble, but it's got to be with Rumble over 1,000. And very special, if you missed it at the beginning, this is a message from the former governor of the state of California.
Hello, everyone. This is AI Arnold. We would like you to hit the like button and please subscribe. We need to get the boys to 169,000. Isn't that right, Alan?
69.
I can't get enough of that.
YouTube now has that button that says, "Do you have a real person that you're faking?"
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
button,
When you
push it?
upload your video, it's one of the things you got to click now.
That was me saying
Really?
69.
Yeah.
Really.
No,
Oh
no.
my
I mean,
God.
yeah, it could be just you or Arnold. Yeah, there's a button you got to click now. Do you have real people that
Because
you're
we're
faking?
morons. We're idiots. That's
It's
why.
these things, these guide rails are for people that are stupid. That's I mean, I guess we have to click that button, Ms. P Coffee. Check to see if that button exists.
Yeah,
I
that
guess we'll
wasn't
have to
really
conf-
Arnold, everybody.
It also wasn't.
Arnold. Are you
I'm sorry to
sure now?
disappoint you. It wasn't really Alan either.
No, that was me.
He looks that buff.
Wait,
not-
Chris,
yeah.
Chris, are you saying Obama doesn't watch Film Threat?
Yeah, exactly. We had the Obama one the other week. I mean, it's obvious. First of all, the AI that was used to do that. Shout out to Leo Cody. Thank you. Who does these videos for us? It's not very good. It's just sort of like it looks fake. It looks cheap. It
But
looks
that's
like
the best AI.
I like it when it doesn't look real.
Oh, I
It
totally
looks
agree
kinda
with you.
dumb.
Yeah.
It looks like Paul will remember this show. Remember the old cartoon show where it was like a cartoon and they just showed the lips of the people?
Yeah, there's a Clutch Cargo.
Clutch Cargo, yeah.
Clutch Cargo. Why don't
And
okay.
they also had another one, Space Angel. Both of them.
Right.
I watched those religiously.
I love Clutch Cargo was weird. It was weird, but what can you say?
It was great.
Slayer 9068, the first member for 2 months, says My Tyranator versus Boom Part 2 is done. Part 3 is delay.
Okay.
Big pause on that. I don't know what that means, but thank you for that, Slayer.
Well,
96. Red French Moon for €5 says, is Ghostbusters 2 really that bad?
No.
Or is it trendy to know
To now hate it. Probably
It's to now hate it.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't as bad as people say. No,
I
Also,
did not
hello,
like
everyone.
Ghostbusters 2 at
I-
all, man.
I saw it once and that was it.
Same here. I saw it once when it came out, and I remember just like being so colossally
Yeah.
disappointed.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Harry Anders for 100 Swedish krona. Ernie Hudson is a very likable and perhaps underrated actor. I loved him in Oz and a 90s classic matinee adventure movie, Congo, with Tim Curry and Delroy Lindo. Stop eating my sesame cake. Congo. Wasn't Congo made into an Xbox 360 game? That was a while ago. Maybe I'm wrong about that one. 52 movies a year for $4.99. Anybody else think Pinhead should have shown up and taken care of the too many characters problem when the brass ball started rearranging? That would be kind of funny, is to bring in from other franchises. That's going to be the next thing. I don't know if you guys know about this. Do you know about Winnie the Pooh 2? No, Pooh 2 Blood and Honey. Does anyone know about this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We interviewed the filmmakers for our Film Threat Interviews channel. We did that last Friday. They have created a thing called the Poohniverse, which is going to be like Endgame for fairy tales with like Bambi and all. They're actually doing a Poohniverse movie.
All the
So-
Disney public domain characters.
Oh,
Everything
that's
Disney
amazing.
public domain is going to be in one movie. Maybe this is like the horror franchises could team up, the kind of tired horror franchises, because they've run out of names to even name what these things are. There's a new Halloween series. Remember they did like a requel, a sequel, a reimagining, a prequel. Like they've run out of ways to describe repurposing IP. But yeah, Pinhead. That
So
would be
this,
good.
what are the Sony horror franchises?
Well, the horror requels are going to be resurrections. They're going to be resurrection franchises.
Right.
That's how you have to do it for horror. There's now been more Halloween movies than there has been Halloween celebrated in continental United States.
Changer of Ways, beep bop boop for 5 says, I'm up for a sequel with Master Ray and Padawan Phoebe in spooky Scotland facing ghosts without their gear, only brains and bravery.
Oh, interesting.
I would
miss
love
that.
that, man. I would
Interesting.
love something like that. Yeah, just
Yeah.
getting down with the, the history and, maybe cracking open, what was it? Tobin Spirit Guide, like they used to do in the
Yeah.
real Ghostbusters cartoon. Say, hey, man, we got to figure out how to beat this ghost, but we can't use any of our weapons. We're going to have to use our ingenuity and our wits. That would be awesome. I would love
Yeah,
that.
and the master apprentice relationship is just
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier today. The relationship between Phoebe and Ray is really good on screen.
Mhm.
They have great
Mhm.
chemistry, and I liked Lars. So I would have I would get Nadim, Lars, Ray, and Phoebe together in a movie. Just them. I would love it.
Quit Bush and Ryu Cat for 20. Thank you. That's very generous. Chris, first, I'll never believe Phoebe is a lesbian simply because that's not how you should look at women bonding. Second, could we invite Robert Burnett? Robert Burnett was supposed to be here. He was scheduled. He had the link. He lost power at his house and he has repair people. He may show up before the stream ends. I'm keeping an eye out, but as far as now, Rob Burnett's, it's technical issues. But he's normally here, and thank
Do
you.
you know why? Do you know why I knew that Phoebe and the ghost were not lesbians?
Melody.
Because they weren't playing field hockey.
Right.
That's how you tell. That's
We're
how
soft
I
now.
tell all my lesbians. Are you
soft
you
Also,
play
Melody
field
was in
hockey?
far too good of shape to be a lesbian.
Whoa! She could have been a lipstick lady.
Whoa.
Send
I'm
all
sorry,
your
I had to go there.
messages to Script Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait
Script
till
Doctor.
the
Let
meter
me
maid.
get through
They're going
these.
to get you for that one, Script.
Wait
You
till
better
the
hope they
meter
don't see
maid
this.
catches up to your car.
Let me get through these real quick. Only a few more. T-Pack 28 for 10. Did anyone happen to catch the lesbian ghost grooming? Phoebe is 15 years old. How old is her crush? I could be wrong, but I think she was in her 20s. It seems strange to me. She actually looked like she was in her 20s. The character said she's 16. I
Yes.
recall that, but yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The actress looked way older than
Oh,
16.
way
She looked
Well,
way older.
Death
than
will do
16.
that to you.
And Pilgrim Media for 2 says the story was hokey and disjointed. Thank you, Pilgrim Media. And Changer of Ways Beep Bop Boop says, I meant Ray and Phoebe on vacation caught up in a thing for 2, in reference to your previous comment. Thank you for that. And a
Yeah.
couple that we missed
up in a
last
thing.
week, missed super chat from last week, from Friday. Thoughts on fitness with Nigel, member for 15 months. Keep up the great work, guys. Love it. And another missed super chat from last Friday, Yellow Flash 2 for 2. I got unsubscribed. WTF? Yeah, I'll just say this. There's a lot of shenanigans happening at YouTube right now. I don't want to divert into a conversation about it, but our views are going like this. We're getting like we're consistent, and then suddenly, like, I don't know what's going on. I'm sure everyone here has experienced a little bit of algorithm nonsense. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've been unsubscribed to things, definitely.
Last month I
Oh, yeah,
saw
definitely.
a very strange
Definitely.
set of behaviors, but this month I've seen a bounce back, I would say.
It
It
fluctuates.
seems
It
like
goes
YouTube
up,
does
goes
this
down.
a couple. Yeah, seems like a couple times a year. This seems to always happen.
Well, yeah,
So-
because they claim that they're removing bots, and then a lot of wacky stuff happens in between. So
Exactly. So where does the Ghostbusters franchise go from here?
That's
Where
a big
does
one.
it?
They
That's a
gotta,
big,
they gotta
like,
reconcile the giant cast and
well, I think
deal
the
with
originals
Yeah,
are out.
here's the question. Can this current new group of Ghostbusters carry this franchise forward? Are you excited to see the next film in this franchise with this group of characters? You
No.
know,
With
everybody that
With 2/3 the budget, it could work.
With
Okay.
some of the characters, but not all of them. No.
No.
Phoebe, Paul Rudd, and Dan Aykroyd. Those 3 you can do something with. The rest, take or leave. I would say leave more often.
The
Yeah.
mother was
No, you gotta-
inconsequential.
Mother
gotta
should
keep
be the
podcasts.
secretary. They made a joke of that. The mother should be the secretary, taking the calls and booking the things, because you need someone to take over for Janine. And
yeah, but you can't put a woman in that role because it'll be considered insulting, and we live in modern times where you can't.
you
have,
put
like-
kinda like the
podcast
boss.
in. Is
She's telling them
podcast
where to
coming?
go. She's giving them orders.
Or maybe because they set up that this Ghost Corp, maybe the next movie has nothing to do with the Venkman family and they start new with something else, but keep Ernie Hudson as the one constant. and they do something new. That's the only way I can see them doing another film.
I also don't mind even like, forget all the like, we have to have a new, do we really have to have a new cast here? I mean, what they could have done is maybe replaced, you could have had Ghost Egon, right? In a new Ghostbusters movie. You could have brought someone on. I just want to point to an example that doesn't get brought up enough. The Star Trek movies. If you look at, set aside Star Trek, the motion picture, that was a different thing. But 2, 3, and 4 tell one kind of story, starting with, Wrath of Khan and the death of Spock, spoiler. But they were all old. Nobody cared. It doesn't matter. I love those characters.
That's an interesting
Patrick
point.
Stewart is how old? Stop. Stop taking old characters and talk about how they're old. That's I think that's one, that's lame. But two, like, you could have just done Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson and maybe someone, or maybe you bring in one or two other new sort of,
bring a Savick in. Yeah.
Someone at that stature, someone of that stature, and just make a Ghostbusters movie like that. Because, and I'll tell you why, this is a bigger question. I want to address that, and I'm going to ask you guys to address this. The audience isn't growing. The audience isn't growing. You have now competition. I'm talking about Gen Z. Alan, it's your daughter's fault. It's your daughter's generation's fault. No, but what I mean by this is that you have competition. Movies is a form of entertainment, and you have video games and social media / TikTok.
Yep.
How do you compete? And also, a night at the movies is about the cost, almost, if you like,
factor in gas and parking.
The cost of a video game, right?
Yep.
So, and when you look at hours of entertainment, so how is the audience? First of all, the audience is shrinking. I can tell you definitively, it is shrinking. How do you bring in a younger audience and get them into cinema? And I'll say this: Robert Meyer Burnett's not here, but he did say on a stream, it was not necessarily last week, but the week before, he said cinema was the art form of the 20th century and video games are the art form of the 21st century. So are we seeing just the audience shrinking, and are we looking at things like Star Wars isn't really bringing in enough new fans to replace the people like myself that have given up on it? Because truly, if I was not on YouTube covering pop culture for, on this channel, I don't know that I would be watching shows like The Acolyte or any of these. I would probably check them out, and then I would check out.
Well,
sorry, the question is kind of big. My apologies.
I have an answer, and the thing is, part of it is that we have to run an experiment, and it's only after we run that experiment can we empirically answer your question. And the one big difference right now is that, and as I mentioned earlier, we are bereft of comedies. Comedy was hugely important from the beginning of movies, from Max Sennett to not Clark Gable, but I mean Cary Grant, all this little movie. I mean, comedy was a huge staple of Hollywood, and unless we find a year where we can unleash like just an insane number of comedies and just measure the result of that, then I'll be able to answer your question, because comedies are just so important for us. They were such a massive staple, and we've abandoned them like entirely. This is what I don't understand. So that's my point. Then once we do that experiment and we see the results of that, then I'll answer your question.
Okay, I have an answer for that, and it's pretty simple. Lower ticket prices. That's how you get younger people into the theater. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, $20 just for the movie, and it's a movie that might or might not be good. These kids aren't going to pay that. They're not going to do it. And then they're not going to go in there and pay $20 for popcorn, $10 for a soda. They got to drop.
And the other thing that's a problem is that someone goes, I don't know if everyone thinks this way, maybe kids do. Here's this superhero movie made for $200 million that obviously looks like a shit ton of money is on the screen. And then here's these two guys kind of smoking dope in the back of a van. And I'm paying the same amount for the movie. And which one am I going to go to? I'm going to go to the one that clearly has had more effort put into it. So I think movie prices should be what's the
Scalable
word?
to the budget.
Yes. So whatever the budget of the movie was, that will affect the ticket price.
I mean, you
That's
got to
why-
realize, like,
Yeah.
people are out here paying $10 for a carton of eggs. Okay, like people just don't have the money to go spend, on a 2-hour movie. They're not going to blow $40 for a 2-hour movie.
But so
And then
that's tied
especially when you
into the
can get-
budget.
Well, especially
Yeah.
when you could get free entertainment on your phone, and that's how everybody's watching everything
Yes.
on their phone. You can get YouTube, you
They're
got
waiting.
video
Definitely
games, you got like so
Yep.
many different options that we didn't have when we were coming up.
Right.
We didn't have all of these options, and now you just have like a plethora of different things that you can, throw your money and time and attention into. And if film is falling off because it's just the same old, it's redundant. We're going to sequels, we're going to do reboots, we're going to just remake everything instead of actually giving us original content. So to your point, Chris, you got to start taking risks. You
Yep.
got to start saying, hey, we're going to lower the budget on all of these films. We're not going to spend $100 million. We're going to spend 10 or 20 or $30 million. And instead of making, one film for $100 million, we're going to make 3 films, and we're going to experiment, and we're going to try different things. Hollywood has become a very risk adverse industry because they're afraid to lose money, which, obviously I don't blame them basically based on what we're looking at right now. It's real easy to just make a $200 million movie, and that's going to be a bomb. So
Think about
they're-
when we were
trying to-
younger. Man. When we were younger, movies were what, $3-5 to go watch.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was our allowance. We could spend our allowance and go watch a movie.
Yeah.
You can't do
Yeah.
that now.
Well,
I don't know
I'll
if
just say
anybody's
this.
getting $3 or $5 for an allowance.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, back
Yeah, I
in the
couldn't afford it.
70s,
Not my allowance.
70s and 80s, man. I mean,
If that's what you
Well,
got,
I mean,
out of
hey,
the
I'm
league,
old,
yeah.
dude. I'm old. Okay, so
to be fair, the AMC, and I'm not like endorsing, I'm not a sponsor. I get like the thing that brought me back to seeing movies every week. This was a couple years ago when we started the movie meetup group at the AMC Burbank 16. It's $25 a month, and I can see 3 movies a week. So that's 12 movies. That's like maybe like a little over $2 a movie. So if you do the A-list, yeah, you're paying $25 for 1 month, but in the month you could just, even if you just go to 2 movies, that's still like a good value. And then the other thing is, and I can't believe I'm going to admit this on this show, but I will sneak in. I'll get 1 AMC cup, and I will sneak in the cup Dante always laughs when he sees me do it because I am stealth.
it's the most ghetto shit. I'm sorry, ghetto stuff I've seen in a long
Wait,
time.
let me defend myself.
But I understand why you do it.
$8 or $9. If I'm going to the movies a couple times, I'm literally saving like $100 a month by bringing in. Now the cup does get a little raggedy by
Rancid.
the end. I'll go buy another cup, but I can sneak in. Can I tell you how I sneak? So I take my jacket and I put it down the sleeve, and then I just sort of put my jacket over and I bring in a cup. Yes, follow me for more tips.
Chris is like those old school drug dealers when they open their jacket. He has like all these cups and like popcorn and candy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm
Here,
very.
let me.
I'm,
yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I could. I know it's dumb, but the point is this: I'm a budget-minded person when it comes to going to the movies. Dante, that's why you come to my place sometimes before we go. We kind of pregame before.
Yeah.
I got
Hey, listen,
Let me tell you what I know.
Sorry to divert there.
Let me tell you what I know of the youth. For one thing, there's only one reason my daughter sees movies, and it's this guy. But to that point is that kids know quality. Kids want quality, and what they're seeing in trailers and stuff is not quality, and that's why they're not going to it. I mean, the Marvels. I asked my daughter, "Do you want to see it?" She goes, "No." Do your friends want to see it? They all go, "No, the trailer looks lame." I still go to that well of, if you have a good movie, people will go see it. If you have a good trailer, people will go see it, and we're just not producing. The big Hollywood studios are not producing content that kids want to watch.
And no one, and honestly, no one's excited anymore for movies, man.
Yep.
There was a time not too long ago, we sat through credits to see an end credit from an MCU movie, right? Now people just walk out if they even go see the movie. like we're just not getting quality, man. We're not getting the care that we got even 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
Speaking
now
of
it's
that,
about
sneak peek to the Acolyte.
I'm
it's about the event film. It's about making a big, like if you're not on the MCU's level, if you're not doing some kind of a big event, you know, where everybody's going to be talking about it, you know, nobody's coming, nobody's coming to see that. So I think that's one of the big problems this film had is, it didn't really have any pre-game buzz where everybody's like, oh man, Ghostbusters, I can't wait. So, whatever, I'll see it if I feel like it. Nobody's really checking for these movies like that anymore.
I'll tell you another problem. There's no romance in movies anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's no more guy gets the girl. There's no more, you know what I mean? Like just no more like, connection between actors and actresses. It's weird. It's like this sterile like form of filmmaking now.
And my daughter saw a TikTok of Disney kisses, and the first thing she said after watching it out of the blue was, "I miss Disney romance."
Wow.
Well, if you don't have that romance, you start seeing romantic behavior and things that are possibly not romantic, such as this movie. Again, because we don't see any kisses, we see nothing reflective of that. Even the stuff between Paul Rudd and the mother, very, very platonic.
Oh, sterile. It was sterile.
Yeah, man, they felt like brother and sister, didn't they? Like,
I don't think they kissed at all in the movie.
Yeah, you're right about that. I didn't even think about
it.
No,
they didn't kiss one time, did they?
But what's weird is this is how consistent this is in films. They even took Dune, which by the way I've seen 4 times. I'm seeing it. Finally got a decent ticket to see it on Sunday in 70 millimeter, and each time I've watched it, all the stuff with Chani has gotten worse. It's gotten worse. They could have, if they had made it a sweeping romance, it would have been, the ending would have been so much more meaningful. As it is, they make her a non-believer of Paul. She despises him at the end. She feels it's sort of super high school at the end of Dune Part 2. It's my biggest complaint about the movie is how they I don't mind, fine. Thufir Howard is not, and there's other little changes, fine. There's actually some changes that are positive and good things. The biggest change that has ruined that movie, and I know this because I'll just randomly text Danica, Comic Book Girl 19. She'll be back, by the way, on a show. And how she ruined that movie. The way that not Zendaya personally, but the way that Denis Villeneuve changed her character altered the trajectory of the film, because romance is something everyone can relate to love and be loved regardless. It's just everyone can relate to that. It's so simple that Hollywood seems intent on killing romance of the movies. Why is that? And I look, go down some conspiratorial rabbit holes or whatever if you want, but there is a clear effort. Hollywood doesn't like romance in movies. I miss it. Some of my, even movies like, this is going to sound like a weird reference, Natural Born Killers had a better romance than a lot of the romances I've seen in films, in the sense that those characters, they loved each other so much.
Yeah.
Ricky and Mallory, they loved each other, and yet they're, of course, homicidal maniacs and serial killers. But even there was a romance there. Weird movie to reference talking about romance, but it's in there.
Here's the thing.
True romance with Christian Slater and...
Yeah.
Yep. True romance.
We go to movies to feel emotions. The thrills of a roller coaster, the heroic ending. I hate to say it, but love is also an emotion we want to feel. And we've removed love from
part of the
movies
patriarchy.
altogether.
Yep. That's what Nicole Kidman says every time I sit down and watch a movie, right? To love, to laugh, to cry, and all of that. Like, that's why we go to the movies. And they've absolutely removed all of that from the movie-going experience. The only reason I can think of as to why is because the people that are creating the content, it's the creators. This is something in their lives that maybe they're lacking. I don't know. But, like, there should be love and emotion on the screen. And when you get this emotional or emotionless, sort of drivel, then, everybody tunes out. And people are just going to go, all right, let me turn on a TikTok video. There's emotion there. Again, people want connection. They want to connect to something. And the connection seems to be right now, at least for Gen Z. All right. I got 4 kids all in Gen Z myself. And all of my kids, none of them watch movies. Okay. None of them watch movies. They'll watch anime in a heartbeat. All right. They'll go to anime and they love it. All right. Or they'll go to TikTok. They'll go to YouTube. They all have their favorite YouTubers. And that's pretty much where they spend all of their time. Hardly any of my kids, my youngest loves horror movies. Like, for whatever reason, likes PG-13 crappy horror movies. So he always said, hey, Dad, the latest PG-13 horror flick that comes out, can we go and watch that? I'm like, all right, sure. But outside of that, like, they're not interested. You know,
Well,
they tuned out
we're
Marvel.
terrible parents because we didn't let either of our kids have a phone until grade 8.
No, that's actually good.
I'm
That's a good.
I'm not
great,
joking.
I
I
don't.
didn't
But I
have a
don't.
phone until high school, so that's because they didn't exist, affordable at that point. But yeah, it's kids don't need the phones. They need to get their energy out in the real world and then also get culture,
Right.
because one of the things that was great about the 80s, but also detrimental to the 80s, is that everybody that made a movie in the 80s was inspired by stuff prior to the 80s and read actual books growing up.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing
Now
to
we have a whole
influence them.
generation
Yeah.
that never read the books, just watched the stuff from the 80s, and we're seeing the results of that. We are literally seeing a copy of a copy, and obviously when you do a copy of a copy, the quality degrades. And if you don't go back to the well to what inspired those people that created those great franchises, those great one-offs in the 80s, you're never going to be able to get into the mindset to understand what is the value to create it into the next generation.
Well, the other problem is that North America, especially, we're not as ethnocentric as we used to be, which is why we're naturally attracted to Korean and Japanese movies and foreign movies from countries which are intrinsically ethnocentric. We don't know what it is about a movie from Iceland. We go, like, what's their connection to us? Well, Iceland, it's a very homogeneous place. Same with Korea, same with Japan, and they're living a life that we no longer live here. We're sensing it. We don't know why, but we like the family. We like the connectivity. We like the fact that they're supporting each other, and we're really, as you said, we're really attracted to that. We don't have that here. We're not a homogeneous, continent anymore.
But at least I see myself in movies now.
As you should.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we go to the movies for. Mirrors.
Dr. Yue in Dune
Yeah.
part 1. Shout out to Nerd Cookies is in the chat. Always watch. He had a great video drop. I think it was yesterday. Very good. Just love her continuing Dune coverage.
I mean, as far as representation, I don't see any Hungarian actors or movies. I'm just saying. That's just not. That's not.
You know what? I'm gonna just say it, man, because I know we're trying to be like very tactful in what we're saying, but I'm sorry.
Oh, here it comes. Here's Dante.
Here it comes, dude. I'm
Drum roll,
gonna
everybody.
say it. We don't see enough tits anymore, man. We don't see enough tits anymore. We don't have sex appeal in films anymore.
Yep.
At least
Let
side
me-
boob. A little
Let me
side
second
boob.
what Dante's saying, because I saw Roadhouse. It was fine. I gave it it was okay. It was fun and dumb. Like the weird reverence people seem to have for the old Roadhouse. It's like, come on, it didn't spawn a franchise. It's a cheesy movie from 1989. That's a lot of fun. And I feel like whatever the new one was trying to do, it was fine with that too. But the one thing that was different about the original as opposed to the new Roadhouse, the old Roadhouse had a lot of nudity, a lot of female nudity, girls taking their tops off. There was romance and sex. The sex and romance in the new Roadhouse is just so dry. You don't even believe that they really actually even like each other. It's like they're almost on purpose derailing some of these romances. And you're right. Like, look, I'm fine with Conor McGregor walking around with his ass out in 2 scenes in the movie. I'm okay with that, but you got to compensate. There are heterosexual men in the audience, or gay women in the audience that would like to see some woman behind. They'd like to see some female booty.
Yeah, because now
as
now
Dante
we've
said,
gotten to the point now where if you do see any nudity in a film, it's always from men. It's not from the women. So it's just they're sucking the fun, no pun intended, out of these movies.
Well, they're sucking something.
The other part too is you have a woman like Haley Atwell, who is a very curvaceous, beautiful woman, and in all the movies
cover her
that she's
up.
been in, they are covering her up. Now you've got Sydney Sweeney, who's basically about 13 years younger than her, who is going out of her way to try and show as much skin as she can because she's trying to basically not let the industry, which for some reason since the early 2000s has been like, women with curves are not good. And that is completely counter to our instinctual nature. I am so happy I'm dating a woman with curves and have been for 4 years now.
Amen.
But when you're watching on screen, some women that are actually very talented, but they don't have a sex appeal to them. there's just something missing there. And whether it's they're starving themselves or whether they just genetically don't have the goods, which you can't fault them for.
No, they get cast because of that.
Yeah.
They get cast because they don't have sex appeal.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're cast, like there's the people that are making the content are doing this. This is what they are doing. They're making these actresses with no sex appeal. Okay, they don't want them to have the sex appeal. They're casting them that way, or they're writing them that way. Okay, you're gonna have to dress down. You can't show off any curves. You can't do any of that because that stuff is offensive. I think it's offensive to the people making the films. I think that's the problem.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was fun to see Lara Flynn Boyle on a movie because you knew she was hot,
and Halle Berry as well. Like my God,
yeah.
So that's somehow that's bad. It's the male gaze. It's exactly what these people like Sweet Baby Inc. are, and Anita Sarkeesian has been haranguing the video game industry for, is that the male gaze is just somehow bad. Like it's
because it's not looking in their direction. That's why.
It's right. We're sick and tired of it. Like seriously.
By the way, shout out to Poor Things.
She's not very curvy.
That's actually something to be for. Emma Stone has been desexified since she started with her first big hit, which was the Michael Cera and Jonah Hill movie,
Adventureland.
No, before that,
Superbad.
Yeah.
Like,
well, let's see this.
Will her down.
Why are we putting my tweet?
But I agree with Dante.
Oh, sorry about that. I just people in the chat are talking about this tweet that Alan put out. He's a quote tweeting.
So read the Variety tweet.
Variety says Disney faux Nelson Peltz questions woke Marvel films. Why do I have to have a Marvel movie that's all women? Why do I need an all black cast? So he quote tweets it, and Alan Ing says, I don't know. Did women come out in droves to see the Marvels? Did the black community support Black Panther 2 like they did the first? What about the underperforming ticket sales of The Little Mermaid? And apparently, Alan is canceled. Oh God, sorry,
I've
Alan.
been canceled. I know.
It
was fun while it lasted.
You got
canceled. God. No, you're fighting people in the chat. Hey, fight with Alan. Fight with Alan.
Welcome to the club, brother.
We're all talking about box office.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. You're right, Alan. You're absolutely 100% right. You're 100% right. If the community
knows to me.
Whoa. No.
There's things I want to be in my life.
Right.
No. You meant 100% white adjacent is what you meant.
Yes. No, I'm just saying that it's like they're not reading what you wrote. Like those communities didn't come out and support those movies. Yep. So what does that say?
Well, here's the other thing. If they did, it shows how small of a community they actually are and the overall demographic. Because if we're looking at, say, under 15%, and it's all of them going in there, and they're not marketing to the rest of this, this next 85%, then you're not going to have a great turnout. And you still have to make something good. You can't just predicate it on, oh, look at this cast. Sorry to have
Strange World had Strange World had an LGBT storyline in it. And the gay community didn't come out and support that movie.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst performing Disney films.
I think Alan and I remember it was Thanksgiving weekend, and you and I, for some reason, got away to see this film. I saw it by myself in a theater, and there were like maybe 8 or 9 other people. And I remember like messaging you and going, what did I just watch?
Yeah. I was in a theater with 2 other people, a grandfather and a son.
Grandfather
and grandson. And the grandfather, every time the gay love story came out, the grandfather would talk to the son to distract him from it.
What was the gay comedy writer who did the movie about dating?
Bros. That one, Bros.
The gay community didn't go out and support him.
Yep.
Nope. They did not.
The community hates Billy Eichner.
Well, but notwithstanding that, not enough people from his community went to watch the movie.
See, that happens, and then they blame us for it failing, right? Like we're the reasons the Marvels failed, right? The men,
right?
Where all the women?
Yeah. What's the reason the Magical Negroes failed?
Yes.
Yeah, what happened?
Black people didn't want to see that.
Black people
you bought a ticket.
I use my membership card. So I count that as one of my free movies.
Well, that's because Perry wasn't in it. If Perry was in it, then you would have gotten most of Chicago to come out.
Tyler Perry.
Tyler Perry. If Tyler Perry was
Oh
in it
yeah.
as Medina, then
Medina.
it would have gotten the audience.
Tyler Perry would have been good, man. He would have been good.
Tyler Perry's a very talented guy.
Anything would have been better than what we got, but
And
Yeah.
well, he knows his audience.
Oh,
and
he does.
He makes films to
he
his
definitely
audience,
knows his audience,
and he makes
unfortunately.
money doing that.
But this is the difference with Tyler Perry. He scales the budget for
Yes.
the audience. And I would
Yep.
I would say that if you made the movie Bros, you could make the same script on a lower budget, open it in New York and LA,
Yep.
have it only play in 2 theaters. You could only see it in 2 theaters. The scarcity. This is the thing that Hollywood has forgotten. Scarcity or not being able to see something first is a big deal. Alan was just at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas. He saw a bunch of movies before they're being released, like Monkey Man or whatever. That frenzy over a film that, like, this is the only time it's playing. That's it. Like, that has gone away. That was a marketing tactic. Now you could open in 2 cities and 2 theaters. You could expand the theaters and then maybe go on streaming, or
VOD,
video on demand earlier. That
Yeah.
was a technique for a lower budget indie movie to be profitable. But now what they're doing is they're taking movies that are themed, and I'll say the 2, Bros and the American Society of Magical Negroes. The American Society of Magical Negroes, if it was made on a lower budget and it was, if you could only see it, I guarantee it would have, every screening would have been sold out.
What was the cost
Yeah.
of it?
I don't know what
They
the
still
budget
haven't
is.
said.
Alan knows. But what I'm saying
Yeah, I
about
thought
that
they haven't released it yet, but
with scarcity, or like the inability. What's a movie you want to see? I want to see the movie I can't see, right? I can't see it. It's only in 2 theaters. I tried to get tickets. I couldn't get tickets.
But what I don't
technique-
understand is, I mean, again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the black population, but in the 70s, I used to go to movies like Shaft, and I'd be like one of the only white guys in the theater, and the other thing at the time, and I don't know whether it's still the case, but horror movies. I used to go to the horror movies with like in Detroit with almost all, an entire black population. The reason is the people in the audience were more interesting than the movie, because people were yelling from the audience, "Don't go downstairs! Don't! He's in the basement!" Right? Am I incorrect?
No, you're not.
No, it absolutely
So I went.
That's part of the fun. That's actually part of the fun. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get that with a white audience. So I would go to see the movies in Detroit, the horror movies in Detroit, because it was like way more
Right.
fun. The audience was the show, like not the.
Yeah, it's interactive for sure.
It's interactive. I've never experienced that before, and the first time I did, I went, "What the hell?"
Jeremy
was fun.
Winfield here with a quick comment: create the illusion of demand. Hollywood has forgotten how to market a
Yes.
small look. Let's be brutally honest here. Certain types of cinema are niche audiences.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. They're just niche. There's a difference between the American Society movie and, say, a movie with like Idris Elba, which is going to be much more broad and a bigger movie and more mainstream. But you could make a movie like American Society. You just have to market it a certain way, and you have to make it for a certain amount of money. And the thing is this, that's Film Threat's bread and butter. Alan, we didn't really have these conversations. We first started working together in 2017, but that's our bread and butter, just covering these little small movies. But what we've seen over the last several years is people taking movies that should have a niche audiences and thinking Bros was made for $50 million with the budget of Bros.
40 to
That was
50. Yeah.
huge mistake.
That is insane.
And the fact
It's a
that it had
$5 million
really-
movie tops.
it's not, look, that movie it's not that it had graphic sex scenes, it had uncomfortable sex scenes that, I mean, look, and one of our writers of Film Threat happens to be gay, did not want to see the movie, says, I don't want to see all these stereotypes on screen. Wasn't that the comment, right? Like, nope, I don't want to review it. So I just think that there's a lot of disconnect in Hollywood between observing that the audience is shrinking and you're not getting new cinema fans. And secondly, you're not scaling the subject of the movie to the audience that's there.
Yep.
And that's why Alan got canceled today.
But also on the same trail of lowering the budget, these actors have to start taking less money. Like they have to start taking less money.
At least less money up front, but negotiate better, box office tickets numbers if you're a big name, because that at least incentivizes the talent to do a little bit extra, not just on the days of shooting, but also on the promotion side as well.
I don't like seeing sex in movies because it just reminds me of stuff I don't know anything about.
The chat is on fire, by the way.
But
There's some
also,
really funny comments.
along with them getting back in, like you mentioned, it also stops them from saying dumb shit in the media.
That's true.
Yes.
It stops
Yeah.
them from
Big time.
from tanking a movie before it even comes out.
The problem with the back end is that people don't trust the studios. They've got ways to make even a profitable movie come up as a failure, as a money loser. There's a lot of distrust.
Well, that's why you got to negotiate the gross, not the net. And a lot of studios will try and convince you that the net is better. Never better.
No,
Always
you go for the gross.
Yeah, the world of the back end is kind of dark and a little smelly. But,
Let's get some super chats here because they've stacked up and there's some really good commentary in here. So let's get to it. And
then why aren't they making movies like Shaft and things like that?
They made Shaft in 2020, I think, and it was a Netflix film. I thought it was fun.
Equalizer.
I mean, more like really fun blaxploitation movies. Like why aren't these
because you know what replaced it? Tyler Perry.
Okay, but that's
not blaxploitation.
Well, nothing will ever be blaxploitation again. Like we know that. Like that was a perfect era that is just gone.
Oh, but those are so fun.
I
don't know.
there was explosions, nudity, and foul language. That was
and it was really very macho.
Oh, and I'm a blaxploitation connoisseur. I own DVDs like that can fill warehouses. Okay, I love blaxploitation.
So you think that era's gone?
I don't think it could be ever done again.
Okay,
you know what it is? It's the $30 million movie. They can't make it anymore because of the DVD market going away. Because you can't make for a $30 million movie. It's very hard to make your money back theatrically, or to make enough profit to make it successful. And I think we're starting to see it kind of come back. I think streaming is more willing to do the $30 million movie. A24, Lionsgate, they're more willing now to do $30 million movies than they have before.
Well, the closest thing I've seen to a blaxploitation recently was the movie They Clone Tyrone, which is on Netflix, which I loved, by the way.
Great.
It's a throwback to the old blaxploitation films. Highly recommend people watch it if you haven't seen it. It's a crazy ass movie. But that's probably as close as we're going to get. And that movie had Jamie Foxx, so it was still a pretty, I won't say expensive movie, but they spent money on it.
Well, I'm going to look for the review on your channel, Dante. Look, you just
I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not seeing Friday Foster, Bucktown. I mean, there's none of that is happening. Anyway, sorry. Here's a white guy who likes. I like George Clinton. I've seen George Clinton.
So you're allowed to say the N-word then?
No, I'm not going to.
Changer of Ways, beep bop.
Yes, I will say the N-word. Naugahyde. There you go.
Changer of Ways, beep bop boop for 2. We need mid-budget again.
Yeah.
They're just on streaming. Yeah. And it goes on to say, Changer of Ways, beep bop boop for 5. Ghostbusters 2016 could have worked if it was Parks and Rec gals instead of bridesmaids. Closer to the working man vibe of the original. It's about execution. Yeah. Harry Anders for 10 Swedish krona. Movies are not movies anymore. In 1989, I watched Do the Right Thing and was blown away. 1993, Falling Down, just explosive. Saving Private Ryan, 1998, was a physical experience. Lord of the Rings, so beautiful. Today, ? I'm with you. Leon Donnelly for $14.99 says, I hear a lot of complaints about Phoebe being irrational, yet Egon was similar. He tried to assault Peck in front of the cops in the first film and tried to drill a hole in his head. There you go. And then Lone Pigeon, are there many stars anymore that will draw people to a movie on name alone? So why the big salaries then? Exactly. And Red French Moon says, I go for the pretty, not the gross. Thank you for that. Well, any final thoughts as we wrap up, gentlemen?
I think that there's very few, just based on that last super chat, very few actors now that are worth their asking price. Very few. The only ones that I would put up there would be like people like maybe Margot Robbie. But there's very few who are worth that price. The thing is, though, again, the incentive should be based on how many people go see the film, right? So if you're asking prices, say 15 mil, and I still think some people are asking for 20, but let's say 10 to 15, based on the type of film you're doing, it'd be worth it just to get an unknown than to try to pay the price of these actors.
Right. All right. I think we talked it through. Let's have everybody go round the horn.
Actually, we have two more super chats.
Oh, two more that just came in. All right. I'm going to do those real quick. Bush and Ryu Cat for 5 says, we done superhero, big kaiju, and epic sci-fi film the last 10 years. What genre is left? Journey to the Center of the Earth remake? You might want to see a movie called The Primevals. It's on Full Moon's
entertainment. Yeah,
Full Moon Entertainment streaming app.
Yeah.
It's that exact thing. It's like a Journey to the Center of the Earth, but it's a movie that was like, they started to make it in like 1979 and they only recently finished it the last couple of years. So actually it's worth, for your 5, you can subscribe to Full Moon Entertainment. And thank you, Bush and Ryu Cat. Love seeing you. And I'd see Bush.
Yeah,
and Ryu Cat.
I'm all there.
Spidey Sensei 72 for 8. Chato and Dante need to partner up and review some Pam Grier films.
Let's do it, man. Coffee. Let's do it.
Ebony and Ivory.
Foxy Brown, baby. Foxy Brown.
Black Mama, White Mama.
There you go.
I'm ready for it.
Salt and
I'm watching
pepper.
that.
Salt and pepper. Yeah, let's pick a Pam Grier movie and let's do it together. I'm all there.
You know, Alan and I.
She's sexy. She was gorgeous.
So here we go.
Yeah, I'm down.
Alan and I,
anytime.
And follow us on Film Threat. Like, share, subscribe. Real quick, give us your channels.
You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/scriptdoctor and make boobs big again.
You can find me on YouTube, Derek Anderson, the DEA. Check me out. Just hit 10K. Looking forward to more.
Congrats.
Paul Chato here. Call me Chato anytime. I'm the Salt.
Verbal Riot. You can find my show on YouTube. You can also find me on X under Verbal Riot Show. Follow me there. A little more controversial, but hey, if you follow me on YouTube, you might as well follow me there.
Nice. And that's it for us. Next week, we'll be back with a special edition of Versus. Yes, we're talking about Godzilla X Kong, and we're going to have a very special panel for that movie. Alan, you probably forgot I told you. Oh, look at
No, I know. I remember. And then we had a very racist conversation afterwards.
Yeah, and thank you to our mods, Lord Toff, Mexican Iron Man, Grig Iron Masters, and Paulie at the Latino Slant, and also Glenn Brown, our producer, and Ms. Pete Coffee. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week. Wednesday, Hollywood on the Rocks. Friday, our Film Threat live cast. So much stuff going on, Alan. It's kind of crazy.
I'm trying to get
Kinda
that
crazy.
thumb.
But that's it. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Thank you.